All right. Well, that brings me to the time in the evening where we get to learn a whole lot more. This is my favorite time in the evening. And today we have Peter Solway waiting in the wings to come and talk to us about his Sales Hire Readiness framework. So I've got a bio for him up here, which I can see is just hidden by a password now. Let me just grab that now. All right, here we go. So for those of you that don't know Peter, and I think most of us don't, actually, in fact, I only caught up with Peter a couple of weeks ago. Was it Peter? 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was. But someone down in Sydney, someone up here actually had met him and sort of mentioned some of the things they spoke to him about, and I thought he would be ideal for the show here. So it's in an area there that we often don't cover, and that's the sales and sales process. It is an area that is important for business. So to give you a wee bit of background about Peter, he is really experienced in the early stage of business. So that's where he really excels. He's built his first $1 million in revenue for an enterprise software company and hit 135% of the revenue targets. So I'm not sure whether they had high targets or low targets, but 135%, beating that, you're going to be a legend by the founder by doing that. He's also raised early stage investment money and government grants fund for a pre-seed stage startup. So it was about 650K. And he's achieved a 4 times increase in his personal earning capacity using a personalized health and work strategy coaching. Well, I'm interested in that there to get a 4 times increase, just working on sort of a health and work strategy, then that's something I'm definitely interested in. So he does work with businesses in that B2B sphere, and he's got a whole framework around sales readiness. And so when I was chatting with him a while back, he said that just going through the process was enough to increase the sales in business. So that got me curious to wonder how that worked. And so in the process of starting to hire people, before they even hired, they're getting improved results in sales. So it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage tonight, Peter Solway. Let's give him a round of applause to bring onto stage.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks everyone for being so welcoming. It's a really interesting topic that I've gone quite deep on, right? Like I've been a founder, I've been in the shoes of a lot of you in this room. I mean, this business myself, I've started from scratch, right? But I've started tech companies and various different other businesses, like Nick mentioned, raising some money and different things for some of them. So it's been quite a journey to get here. But at the end of the day, moving that sales dial is so important, and it's quite a challenging process, particularly when you're going from being the founder, doing all the sales to yourself, because you kind of bring a certain passion, a certain lens on your experience when it's your business and you've built it, and scaling beyond that journey is really where I've become quite interested, because being a first sales hire is very different to just hiring anyone who can do sales, and we'll touch on that today. And I'll take you through the framework that I work with. It's actually developed by a company called Justified Talent. They're a specialist first sales hire recruiting firm. But the framework really put language and structure to a lot of the systems and process I've found really allows you to set up your sales engine for success. So we'll talk you through that framework today. There's a link there. It's only 4 or 5 minute test, so you'll be able to go and do that yourself. And then, if you need some help looking at how you actually take that and put it into tangible action, we can talk about that as well. But I'll take you through why it's all set up the way that it is, and really give you some, hopefully, tangible things to take away. So that's the agenda for today. But when I'm talking with an audience, I love, checking in with everyone and really seeing if I can add some nuggets of gold that are really specific to what's going on for you in your sales world, your business right now. So I guess we'll just do a little bit of a quick popcorn like Nick did at the beginning to when everybody was introducing themselves. If anyone's got like their biggest sales challenge, that's on their mind at the moment, to see if I'm able to sort of answer that or weave some of what we talk about today into that. I'd love for you to just, put your hand up and say hi and talk about your biggest sales challenge. See, Aldwin, straight into it. Perfect. What's your biggest sales challenge?
Yeah, my biggest challenge is actually converting calls to sales. So I find I have great conversations with people and great connections, and I give a lot of value. However, actually turning that into a potential sale, that's the biggest challenge.
Just to check in on that specifically, do you find they're complaining about price? They're saying it's not the right timing. Like, what are you getting particular? Are you finding it hard to ask for the order? Like, where's the challenge in closing out sales from your lens right now?
I think some of the people that are booking calls with me, because it's just sort of organic, like we put the link, my link tree goes out and it's got my booking link in it. And so a lot of people connect with me, but they don't necessarily want to do their own show, or they don't necessarily want marketing. A lot of people say they're very busy. They've got a lot going on. These are common complaints, or they're very shy about getting out there, which are things that I can help people with. The overwhelm thing, though, seems to be a very common thing right across the board at the moment. So just they just seem to have a lot going on. And I guess with starting your own show, it doesn't necessarily lead to income straight away for people. It's something that's a longer term organic marketing strategy. However, one lady did the Global Good News Challenge the other day, and she did one video, her first video, she got a client straight away from her first video. So, it can lead to clients for people. However, I do find there's a lot of this short-term mentality, thinking that people just want the quick sale,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I want to give you a really quick piece now, and hopefully there's some more value added throughout the process of today. But that sounds like a little bit of like targeting as to who your ideal client is. And I talk about this a lot, is finding the trigger event. Like, what means that they're compelled to not do something at some point, but do something now. Right? What are the set of circumstances? What are the situation? If you can get curious about that and experiment with what those circumstances might be, going and doing marketing and getting leads in the funnel that have that specific scenario, that means that they're motivated to act now. If you can help that sort of come in on the front end, that might make the qualification and the process of closing sales a little bit easier. Anyway, that's some broad advice there, but we'll hopefully dive into some more specifics as we're going through. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks,
Cool.
Peter.
Who else has got a burning sales challenge that they might like us to see if we can touch on it today?
I can put up my hand, Peter.
Oh, yeah. What's your biggest sales challenge, Nick?
My biggest sales challenge is getting out from behind my computer and going to talk to people. So, and I think it's that challenge between delivery and sales. So obviously when you're in sales mode, for me, it's an enjoyable process because it's just a conversation and an invitation with people. But then I get hooked into the delivery of all of the things that I need to do. So we've got a small team, like we're a team of 3.5, and but while I'm in delivery, it's like just not thinking about sales. And it's that whole thing about if you're not constantly sort of thinking about where's the next lot of sales coming from, when you finished all the delivery, all of a sudden you're in this, geez, I've got no business coming, I better do something about it. And so you get that invigoration to go out and have those conversations again.
That's a really great call out. And when we talk about the enabling piece in today's session, there's some structure that I like to put when it comes to enabling salespeople or even founders, so that they're able to keep those multiple lenses on the world that they need to have to stay on top of their sales. I guess the really simple thing that I'll touch on now is building a structure for a period of time and using that period of time to review things on, right? So often, when you're managing people in sales, you're putting a yearly plan in place for their targets. You're putting a quarterly plan, and in that quarterly plan, based on how well you're doing towards hitting the numbers you want to hit, it kind of influences what your split of delivery versus going out and finding new businesses, right? And it's like, even if it's humming, if you commit to yourself that this is your portion time for this quarter for sales, that's and it sounds really simple, right? But like when you've got somebody else keeping you accountable for it, like I know personally, I had a little dip when I was getting this business started. I just called up, my sales coach and started paying him more money to keep me on track. And it's like, I knew what I had to do, but having somebody outside of me just keeping me accountable to that, checking in on my structure, it was like, that was front of mind, that I had to have that plan in place, and it really helped. But anyway, again, like I said, and the enablement piece, we'll sort of cover off that in some more detail later on today. Awesome. Last, anybody else want to have a quick last person share what your biggest sales challenge is? See if we can work with that today. Sounds like everyone on this call's got their sales sorted. At least I got a laugh out of that one. Very good. All right. Going, and gone. I'm going to go through the Sales Hire Readiness framework today. Feel free to chime in with questions. I'm happy to sort of take that in the stride if there's something particular that we're diving into and you're like, how do I apply this, or whatever the question is. If there's a few queuing up or it's not in the flow of exactly what I'm at, I might sort of come to that towards the end and answer things off there. So, all right, what I'm going to do is share my screen. So we're all looking at the lovely little presentation that I've got here around the Sales Hire Readiness framework. Here's a bit of a quick agenda. We've got sort of our background, what it is that we do at Founder Sales Solution. What does becoming Sales Hire Ready actually look like? I'll give you a bit of an example of that. And a client of mine who went and tripled his revenues of his business before he even went and hired a salesperson. But it was the process that we went through that actually allowed him to grow that revenue and get in that place, you know, where he did have a really solid approach if he was going to hire someone. Some key sales mindsets, particularly for us as founders, some things that can kind of get in the way. And if we've got these as foundational mindsets, it really helps us come from the right place. The biggest challenges I hear from founders around getting their sales function going. The solution that I talk about, the Sales Hire Readiness framework, we'll go through that in some specific detail. And then I'll go a little bit deeper in talking about the team hiring process when you are looking to go beyond yourself as the founder doing all the sales. And then a little bit of an offer around debriefing your Sales Hire Readiness scorecard if that's something that you'd like to dive into and get some personalized specific actions for you. So let's dive into it. Here's a little slide on our background. Nick's talked about a little bit of my background personally, but at Founder Sales Solution, we're sales professionals who've been the first sales hires selling B2B. It's very interesting. So often founders looking for sales help, they think you've come from Oracle or Salesforce, you've got a background in sales, you must be, you know, able to help them. The reality is there's a different breed of salesperson that works as your first sales hire. And I'm going to talk about them today. And that's, you know, us, we've lived that journey, we've been through it and experienced it. And that's what I guess gives us the background and skills to support small business owners like yourselves. And we understand founders, right? There's a lot of sales managers out there, people with sales experience that haven't done that whole small business founding journey. They don't understand the pressures of being a founder. They can think about it intellectually, but they haven't lived it, they haven't experienced it, they haven't been in this world of, you know, it literally controlling your lifestyle if you can't make enough sales, right? And really impacting, you know, your life. So, you know, having that founder empathy is super important for anyone that you know represents Founder Sales Solution. Here's an example of my friend Pete, who was actually the first client of Founder Sales Solution. And he said to me, Pete, I want to scale my business and I need to hire a salesperson. Can you help me out? So I started helping him out with the process. And as we were going through it, I said to him, Pete, what if instead of hiring a salesperson, we bought you a few extra sales hours in the week, we set you up to be sales hire ready, we made that our focus. So what he actually did was he went and hired an operations manager who was a lot cheaper than a salesperson, put her in place, bought himself a day and a half a week of sales time, right? And in that time, I trained him up on sales, got his sales engine sort of set up, CRM systems, process, trained him in sales. And just from doing that alone and putting the strategies and the coaching in place, he was able to triple his business, more than triple it actually. I think he's on track to do about 1.5 million this year. He's doing 300K and was kind of stuck there for quite a few years at the point at which we first got in touch. So that's the sort of thing that can happen just by setting up this sales hire readiness framework and putting the things in place. The key mindsets around sales that you need to kind of have if you're going into scaling up and figuring out this whole sales thing for your business. The first is that the dark art of sales, you know, people sort of, you can very much measure the end result, but those inputs that lead to moving the dial on your end result of how much sales you're bringing in, it doesn't have to be this dark art, this unknown thing. There are 4 areas we'll talk about within the Sales Hire Readiness framework that really, when you start putting them in place, it allows you to get more predictability and understanding of how to control the revenue number in your business, which is super eye-opening for so many founders. The second key mindset is I can be a good human, make good sales, and make good money. I promise you it is possible. I actually made a post on LinkedIn about it today. You know, for founders feeling like this sales is this icky, horrible thing. And of course, that's because we've all been sold to by pushy, over the top, uninformed salespeople, right? And if we stick with this idea of being open to the possibility that we can make good sales while being a good human and making good money and not treating people in a gross, pushy sort of way, it is possible, right? What I was talking about on the post today was this idea of being okay that if they're not a fit, if it's what you've got isn't the right fit for them, to just walk away, right? Or if they've got a better option, like, be totally okay. If you come with that mindset that you're okay to walk away if you're not the right fit for them, it stops you from being pushy. It stops you from, feeling that pressure you've got to make more sales taking over. So yeah, a couple of key mindsets for us to all get started with today. So what are the biggest challenges when it comes to starting a sales team for founders? I notice they often have this mindset that it's like, I don't like sales. If I hire a salesperson, they'll fix everything. I'll just get enough money in the bank. I'll just find the salesperson. Once I do that, everything will be okay. That is a risky mindset. I know it makes sense. And I know as a founder, you're wanting to do what you love and just execute, I get it. But the reality is you need to put some things in place, hire the right type of salesperson. Otherwise, you have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, which most small businesses can't afford. I'm talking around the $200K a year mark to find someone who really can kind of do everything and just take care of sales for you. Often very unaffordable for small business owners who are trying to scale up, right? So putting some of these things in place would allow you to close that gap and make more informed decisions. The second one is that a founder goes and hires a salesperson and wonders why they can't sell at the same rate that they can. Why can I have 10 meetings and I close 7 of them, but I hire this salesperson and they're closing 2, or they're closing 5, or they're closing, at a rate not as high as you? Why is that? That can be quite a challenging understanding whether that's the salesperson isn't up to scratch, or whether, we aren't providing the necessary support for them to get through. And often founders say, well, have them shadow me. Then why can't they just copy me? And the reality is, as a founder, you bring something that is non-replicable to the sales process, but you do bring principles that leave clues that can be extracted and turned into a sales process that allow people who are not you as the founder to sell in your business. And it's a key pivot point, for you getting through that scale, and extracting that really creates a lot of business value for you going forward as far as scale goes. The third is exactly what I kind of spoke about just there, which is hiring a salesperson and not knowing, they're not performing at the level of expectation that you have for them, right? Do you have a reasonable expectation? I mean, paying for themselves and making you profit is a great place to come from. That's the ideal of where you need it to be able to work for you. But is that reasonable? If you've got the things in place to support someone, are you expecting someone to be performing like they're worth 200 grand a year and you're paying them 60 grand? And it's like, well, there's a reason that salespeople get paid different salaries. And I know commission's a big part of sales, but particularly in the B2B space, good salespeople can walk in and command pretty big salaries, and even exponentially more than that in commissions, because they really do deliver. And so understanding that landscape is really important if you are thinking about bringing on a salesperson. So the solution, the Sales Hire Readiness Framework, you can see up here on the screen, I've got the justifiedtalent.scoreup.com. That's where you go and take the Sales Hire Readiness scorecard test. It only takes 4 to 5 minutes to take. It is really good. I'm going to just quickly stop my share there and share what it looks like when you go and take the test. You'll get a little email that, that looks a little bit like this. And when you click on the link to that, you then go and reach sharing pages. Having a little trouble here. Here we go. So this is the sort of thing that shows up when you do take the Sales Hire Readiness test. You get some results like this. It'll give you an overall score of where you're at, 36%, for example, out of 100. Now, what you want to be looking out for is being at a point of 80%. That's when you know that if you bring the salesperson in and they're not working out, it's the salesperson's not the fit for the role, not you haven't done what you could be doing as a founder, as a leader to sort of bring people in from a sales perspective. It breaks it down into 4 areas. So you can see here we've got affordability, systems, marketability, and enabling, and it gives you a specific score on each of those areas. So you can see where you're at, what it is that you need to be doing. So what it is that you need to be doing, what do each of these areas mean? Well, I'll go back to the presentation that we've got here and share that so that we can go through exactly what it is that we need to do in each of those areas. So the first section here, this is the affordability piece. Why do we have affordability on there? Like, can't we just hire commission-only salespeople and, they're salespeople, so they should bring in money? Like I was touching on before, good quality salespeople can walk into, like, your average decent B2B salesperson is walking into $100,000 a year salary or more if you're selling B2B. B2C is a bit of a different world, but having some baseline salary there does allow you to attract some higher quality sales talent. I do recommend that. Now, having 3 to 4 months of salary cash in bank is really important, because if you hire the salesperson and expect them to start selling from day one, it can happen, right? But the reality is there's all sorts of different profiles of salespeople out there. Some people take a little bit to get going. Sometimes they need to find their feet. Sometimes you just need to give them that leeway, particularly if you've got longer sales cycles, to go and find their feet. And if you're putting pressure on them to close all these deals in the first month or 2 to pay for themselves, it may be worth waiting a little bit longer, having some cash in the bank so that, you can let them find their feet and really get into their groove and start giving you that ROI on the sales hire that you are hoping to. The second area is systems. So there's a lot of systems that you can put in place from a sales perspective to get things set up. But there's 2 core ones that if you don't have in place, it's going to make it tough for a salesperson. Lead generation systems is the first one. So some people say to me, well, they're a salesperson. Can't they just go out and find their own leads? Yes, they can. And that probably is part of their job. But if you give them a couple of warm leads, if you've got a bit of a system or a process that you've worked out for bringing in even a handful of leads a month, it gives them a little bit of momentum. It gives them a reference point to work from. If you're like, figure this out from scratch, that's when you're looking at, like if they could figure out how to do things from complete scratch, they'd probably be an entrepreneur, a founder like you, give them that little bit of momentum. You as a founder, show them how you're approaching bringing in leads. What does that look like? That gives all these clues that will inform the approach they take going forward for finding more leads to build out the pipeline and, become that successful salesperson for you. So you want to have some kind of lead generation systems. The second is a sales methodology. Now, a lot of people look at me and go, oh, yeah, I know what a sales methodology is. I just want to be really clear. Sales methodology is not a sales process. It's part of the sales process. So what do I mean by that? A sales process is when you open up a CRM and you have deal stages, which might be like had first call, sent a proposal, in negotiation, contract signed, right? There's steps in a process that lead to a sale being made. That's a sales process. A sales methodology is what allows you to kind of scale sales and build a rigor of confidence in anybody who's selling to deliver on high closing rates in your business. So it effectively goes and scores each lead or prospect to work out if you should kind of invest more time in them, if they're realistically going to turn into a deal, or if you're progressing the sale, what are the key next things that you need to be across in order to close this sale or close this deal? So the most simple version of a sales methodology that's out there is called BANT. Maybe some of you have heard of it before, but it's effectively an acronym for 4 questions to ask. What's the budget? Do they have a budget, right? Do they have the authority to spend the money? Are they the person making the decision? what's the need? Like, why are they even talking to us? Are they just interested in learning some stuff, or do they actually have a business need that means that they need to buy? And T for timing. What's the timing? Like, is this like something they're going to do in the next 6 months, the next 24 months? Or like I was talking about a little bit earlier with old one, what's that trigger event? Are you talking to people that have got a specific timing need that they need to do something about this now in order to unlock something, right? So if you're talking to people who are, generally interested in getting themselves out there, that can be, it's interesting, right? At some stage, it makes a lot of sense to do a lot of branding and promotion and getting yourself out there. But what's the trigger event for that? Maybe they've gone and raised a round of investment money. Maybe they've gone and hired a whole collection of new people, right? And they need to fill the, close out sales in order to deliver on all of the new hires that they've put in or something, right? What's that trigger event? That can often influence timing. Now, anyway, the BANT sort of sales methodology, like I said, it's the most basic. If you've got nothing, it's really good to just put that rigor in place. Ask yourself as a founder, even before you're hiring salespeople, like, what's the budget? Do they have the authority to spend the money? What's the need that we're solving for them here? And what's the timing around them actually going and spending money on this? And if you're selling, putting that in place is really foundational. But if you're selling deals that are starting to get, above $10,000, $20,000, if you're going up and starting to try and sell $50,000, $100,000 deals, trying to sell into, large organizations on the ASX 200, things like that, that's when you need to start getting a fair bit more sophisticated. And there's lots of sales methodologies out there. Personally, I trained something called TAS sales methodology. There's other ones out there like Medic and Miller Hyman and things like that. And you've just got to find one of those. And it really does allow you to scale up your sales approach. So definitely something to think about, whether you're just building more rigor into your own personal sales approach as a founder, or whether you're wanting to scale up and put something in place for your business. So that's the first two sections. We've then got marketability, which is a little bit self-explanatory, like how well do you know your ideal client in the market, that sort of thing. And I guess where I'd articulate that, particularly with a sales lens, and I've got this up here on the slide here, not just how well do you know the customer, this fictitious, 45-year-old female who's got 3 kids and blah, blah, blah. Those things are good and really valuable for marketing. But when you're talking about setting up a sales function and becoming sales hire ready, you want to understand with the customer the problem that they have, the situation, the means and the need that they have to buy now, which is kind of touching on some of those BANT frameworks I know that I mentioned. But if the customer doesn't have, if you're not clear on what those things are, it's going to be really hard to go out and target and do outbound and outreach that's going to be successful. You need some of those parameters in place, and you experimenting and iterating through those and figuring that out is a really good foundational step from a marketability sort of point of view. Now, one of the things that helps inform that marketability, apart from sort of having these theories and tests around, what problem are we solving? What's the situation that means that they have the means and the need to buy now, is something that I call the sales and marketing feedback loop. So what do I mean by that? One of the most valuable things, and I'll talk about this some more in enabling, is having a sales meeting. Even if you're a solo founder, having that with your mum or your cousin or your partner or whoever, just to kind of talk out the deals that you're closing in your sales pipeline for that week, for that month, and not just going, woohoo, we won the deal. It's like, yeah, but why did we win the deal? How did we come across them in the first place? Taking stock of that, right? Because that informs how you build out this, marketability or understanding the customer piece, right? If you go and you figure out that, you went networking and that's where all your good closed sales came from, and the reason that they bought was because they were, looking to scale up what it was that they were doing. And you see that the consistency of those patterns, that really starts to inform where you double down on any outbound sales that you do, even through to marketing, right? What marketing collateral you create, how you message on your website, your positioning when you introduce yourself to people in networking environments and such. So that's the marketability aspect. And the fourth and final one for the Sales Hire Readiness framework is an enabling, which is really a question to you as a founder, right? Do you want to be a sales manager? Like, it's a specific job. It's not just like, hey, go sell for me, good luck. Or, hey, hop on a few of my sales calls, copy me and go out and do your thing. It really gives a small chance of success, right? Whereas if you take the sales manager mindset and decide this is part of what I'm going to do when I bring on a salesperson, I'm going to invest a couple of hours a week into being their sales manager, or find some help from somebody who's got sales management experience like us at Found a Sales Solution, that really makes a difference. So let me talk to you about what a sales manager even does. Like, why am I talking about this? The first thing that I want to bring up is like the whole accountability and structure piece. So I mentioned this a little bit before when Nick was talking about like, how do you balance out, delivering what you do and going out and finding more sales, right? Typical sort of founder problem that arises. And the same structure can be helpful to a founder in this case as to a sales rep. And that's really contextualizing any of the sales work that you do, right? So if you look at your whole year and you go, right, I'm doing $500,000 in revenue last year, and this year I want to get to 750. Now you have some context as to what's meaningful to you throughout that year, right? If you're closing $500 sales, you're going to have to make a lot of sales to get to your 750, right? But if you're closing $50,000 deals, well, that's a good chunk, right? That's heading towards the direction that you need. So it gives you that context of, what am I chasing? What's the size of the deals that I'm going after? That sort of thing. And then from the annual sort of target, we break that down into quarters. And it's really sort of sitting there at the start of the quarter, looking at your annual plan and saying, how close am I to that goal, right? If we're 3/4 of the way through the year, your target's 750 and you're at 700, you're looking good, right? Like, yeah, okay, let's put some meetings in the pipeline for next year, but we're probably going to hit our number. We're looking good. We don't have to do a huge amount of outbound prospecting. But if we're at 100 grand and we're at the end of the third quarter and we're going to 1 quarter left, we got some serious work to do, right? Like contextualizing things that you have in that quarter plan between, how much time are we spending on outbound sales? How much time are we experimenting with new outbound sales approaches, or just really doubling down on delivery because we've got all of the leads we need in the pipeline? And, let's double down on delivery and find some expansion from our current clients by just absolutely kicking it out of the park, from a founder's lens. But from a salesperson's lens, it might be, really similar kind of thing, right? Like looking into how we maximize revenue out of our current clients versus existing, or whether we're trying a new type of targeting this quarter. Chunking things down allows us to really get that data that we need to as we're looking to scaling up. You can also overkill that, right? In big corporates, they certainly, can really overkill this. I'm talking like, 1 quarterly review plan that feeds into your annual target, and a weekly sales meeting that just kind of checks how we're going against those numbers and how the things we plan to do in the quarter feed into the overall result that we're going and producing. The second part of enabling is personalized rep development. So when I'm talking about that, what I mean is, if you think about the nature of someone who's interested in sales, right? Like who does literally makes their job about sales, is the core of what they're doing is growing a business, right? They're doing growth as their job. And if you think about the mindset of someone who's doing growth as their job, there's probably a pretty good chance they're interested in growing their career, growing their skill set. They've got this interest in this concept of growth. So hiring a salesperson just go out there and sell and figure it out, versus giving them support, giving them coaching, taking them from one level of salesperson to the next, that's really important. So one example I like to talk about, right, is what makes, I mentioned before that good B2B salespeople can go in and earn big salaries of 100 grand a year, and then their commissions on top, right? What helps them get through that threshold? So what I see with a lot of junior salespeople is they come in and they talk about the product and they're really charismatic, and they think that, if they just talk lots and be charismatic and persuasive, they're going to make lots of sales. But what changes the game for them and gets them through that kind of, why would I pay, 80 or 90 grand for a sales rep versus 120, is because the person at 120 has figured out that the people they're selling to don't care about the product that you're selling. What they care about is solving the problem that they have, right? I'm trying to scale my business, therefore I need to, they don't, like, if I'm looking at the problem that we're solving here, right? It's like, you kind of care about hiring a salesperson, but actually you care about growing your business. So the problem we're talking to, if we look at my mate that I spoke about at the beginning, Pete, he thought that he needed to go and hire a salesperson. He did maybe down the line, but he actually had the problem of, I want to grow my business, not I want to hire a salesperson. So when I looked and I understood what the problem was, I was able to give him a solution that impressed him and got him the results that he was after, even though it wasn't the method that he thought that he was going to go down, right? So that's just an example of when you kind of get your head around that. Now, coach, that in theory sounds really simple, but putting that into practice in the way that you talk, the way that you handle meetings, the way that you qualify a customer, all of that is something to kind of learn and practice over time, and helping reps go through that kind of journey can be quite important. The other two sub-points I've got there up on the slides, which you'll see, is being okay to walk away from deals, to qualify out, right? Like, don't close everybody that you're trying to have a conversation with, right? Work out as quickly as possible if they're going to be an ideal fit, and, use the sales methodology, whatever it is that you've decided on, BANT or TAS or whatever it is, to qualify out. If you qualify out quickly, you got more sales time to go out there and network, find more leads, find other deals and opportunities that really do sit in that specific spot where they've got that trigger event, they've got that means and need to buy now. And the other point there is I talk about this challenger mindset. So there's a book out there called The Challenger Sale. It's really good. It's kind of gone through all the different types of salespeople, and often we get under this mistake of, let's hire salespeople that build rapport really well or are really charismatic or that type of thing, right? But actually, the studies that are out there have proven that the best salespeople actually know how to challenge people, not tell them they're wrong, but challenge them when they have assumptions about the world or assumptions about how they solve their problems that aren't quite at the level they need to be to get the results they're after. And I did this specifically with my mate Pete when we were talking about his business, where I challenged him. I said, why do you want to hire a salesperson? Well, I want to grow the business. That's what I think that I need to do. And I was like, but I'd spoken to him and I said, but you can sell. He's like, well, yeah, but I've never really trained in it. And, I know I can talk to people, but I'm not a salesperson. I said, but I think you could be. And I think your founder approach, I challenged him on that notion, right? And that was super valuable for him from a delivery piece, as well as, him seeing me challenging someone in action, right? And when you can challenge people on their assumptions, that's what allows you to go from just taking orders that people are going to buy anyway to really becoming someone that provides quality advice, and that makes the whole sales process feel really rewarding, rather than you just trying to, sell your wares. I know no one here is trying to do that, but the more you get in that mindset of challenging people to, think about the world a little bit differently based on your experiences, where you really add value to their lives. So that's the Sales Hire Readiness Framework. You can see here again, I put the link down here. If you want to click on that, go ahead, do the test. It's 5 minutes, it's free. I've been talking a whole bunch, so I can see there's a couple of things in the chat. I'm not sure if they're questions. So I'll just have a quick pause on that. If anybody's got any kind of questions or comments, I'll just take a little check-in now before I move to the next section. Hopping on in here. Oh, someone's had to leave. No worry. Oh, thanks, Nick. You've dropped the link in the chat for us all. That's what's come through. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to just stick your hand up. So far, we've got another little section to go through. Just want to make sure this is resonating, making sense for everyone, and being of value. Okay, no hands going up means we're all on track. Fantastic. Let's keep going. So here's a little QR code if you are interested in doing the Sales Hire Readiness scorecard and having a bit of a personalized chat with me. You can book some time in there for us to go through that and give you some tangible actions to come away with. But moving on to the next section, we've got our team hiring plan. So if you are going to sort of look at scaling sales beyond yourself, what does that look like? What are the things that you need to think about apart from Sales Hire Readiness that allow you to kind of design the sales team and that scale in the right way? The first thing that we're touching on here is the natural profile and the sales skills. So what do I mean when I say that, right? There's lots of different personality profiling testing tools out there. I highly recommend using those in your hiring process and getting to know people just generally in the business, not specifically in sales, but that can be really helpful. I like to do a general test so I understand how people fit into the mix of the team. Personally, I use Talent Dynamics. Some of you might have heard of it, Wealth Dynamics. same thing, just different branding. That can be really useful. And then specific skills as well. Like, what are the specific sales skills, testing for that? Justified Talent, the specialized recruiting company that's produced the scorecard I've been talking about today. They do some great testing when they're going through the hiring to look at predictability factors as how likely someone is going to be successful in a sales role. The next thing you want to think about is designing the role specifically, right? So what do I mean by this? Isn't sales just like a sales role? I like to break down, it actually comes from a mentor of mine. If anyone wants to look him up, he puts a lot of great stuff on LinkedIn. His name's JD, John Dean from Sales Director Central. He talks about this concept of the 3 parts to a sale: open, navigate, and close, right? It's like when you say that out loud, right? There's the opening, finding the lead, finding the deal. Then it's like talking about what it is that we do, how we can solve their problems, doing demos if we've got some software, showing them examples of how we would be able to solve their problems. And then there's the close part, which is actually getting the dotted line signed, asking those questions, to get the deal done. Now, most salespeople actually, they do all of these 3, but they often become masters in 1 or 2 of them, right? And so a really good interview question I like to ask is, order these from 1, 2, and 3. What order do you rate yourself in, right? Because there are some salespeople who are natural openers. They just go and they find opportunities everywhere. They get the conversations going. In one of the businesses I worked in previously, we hired a guy who was he was an absolute gun at finding new business opportunities, right? But man, he couldn't close, right? He'd start all these conversations, get quality leads in the pipeline, but actually getting the dotted line signed just wasn't happening. And that was kind of innate. We saw some of that come out in his personality profile when I started sort of getting further into that and realizing what was going on there. Whereas someone like myself, I'm very good at the navigating and close side. Certainly I open deals and that type of thing, but knowing where someone's sales skill set sort of peaks and where they can do it, but they're not as good, can allow you as the founder to support them, put systems around. Like, for example, in some of my clients where they've got really good people who can really close sophisticated sales. They get some others supporting on the outbound side, right? And we work with a sales outbound agency to bring leads into the pipeline so that they can go and close them. So designing the role in sync with maybe what skills you've got, what the salesperson is that's coming in and how you can sort of support that is really important. The next area is key interview questions. I touched on the open, navigate, close question. And I also touched on this a little bit earlier around that 100K threshold. Are they a product salesperson or a problem salesperson, right? And just talking to that, the more you think about it, it's like, when I go out, am I telling everybody about the product, the thing that I do, or am I going out talking about the problems that I solve, right? When I'm talking about what it is that we do at Founder Sales Solution, I'm talking about the problem of getting sales beyond yourself. You as the founder are doing all the sales yourself. How do you figure out going beyond you? That's the problem that we solve. What we do is, we're fractional sales managers. We go in there and help you do that. But they do care, but they kind of don't care about that. What they actually care about is, okay, I've been doing this business for a while. I'm trying to scale up, or I want to move into retirement, or I want to sell my business, or I want to go to the next level where I'm not relied on for all the sales, right? And talking to that problem, when you can see that the way a sales interviewee is talking about that, it gives you a lot of clues as to what level they're going to be at as far as what you're going to need to pay them, but also how successful they're going to be, right? Because when they've gone through that, they really can make more revenue for them, which is why they cost more. The other thing is that often people think, good salespeople talk a lot. They're really charismatic. They get out there, they're extroverted. I've worked with some great salespeople who are introverts, right? They have a little bit of a different selling style, and there's specifics that come out in personality profiling, the way that I coach, that's all like a little bit different. But if we talk about, what you're looking for in an interview, what you want to be looking for is someone who's business curious and asks insightful questions. They're asking you as the founder why you started the business. So they're asking, questions that really show that they're trying to understand, they're curious, or are they just trying to push something on you because that's their job, right? And if you can try and understand the mindset there, it's a really good clue as to how valuable they're going to be as a salesperson. The best salespeople ask the best questions. that's the line that I want to leave you with there. And then finally, sales team planning. If you're planning a team, what you can do is look at who else your customer buys from. What other businesses do your customers buy from, and who are the best salespeople? How are they approaching sales, right? Is there anybody in those roles or that has traits that are in those roles that might help inform the type of salesperson that you're going out to market for? So that's the team hiring plan that I guess takes the whole sales hire readiness framework to the next level as you're scaling up and looking to build beyond just getting sales hire ready. So again, if you're looking to have a chat through the results of your sales hire readiness scorecard, I do a 45-minute session with that for attendees here today. That one's on the house from us at Founder Sales Solution. We'll have a chat with you and go through that and see how we might be able to support and really give you some tangible actions, right? Like I think those 4 areas that we talked about in the sales hire readiness framework, knowing what you've seen today, you should have some good takeaways to see where you can move the dial. If you want to dive in and get a little bit more specific with someone whose whole life is figuring out this sales function thing, you can get in touch with us there. So that covers off what we've got there. And thank you, Nick, who's dropped in the Calendly link directly into the chat as well. That covers off what I was hoping to cover off today. I'd love it if you had any specific questions. Feel free to bring those to the surface right about now, or you can always contact me in the follow-up if that's of interest to you as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. Yeah. Anyone got any questions or comments there, either reflecting on your own business, your own position, or anything that came out of tonight's information?
Love to know how any actions you're going to take off today's presentation, tangible things. I'd love to hear that.
Actually, one of the things, Peter, that really struck me was that sort of a piece that you said where some people are good openers, others are good navigating, others are good closers. I'd never really thought about that at all. I thought sales just covered the whole lot. And, there's that principle there that marketing brings people to the door, sales takes them through the door. But from what, you've just spoken about there, there's a reasonable amount of crossover there between that sort of marketing sort of your lead generation process and initiating that through to actually closing the deals. But one thing I was curious about is that one of the things I have noticed is sometimes founders are poor at closing their own deals. They're good to selling other people's products. They're not quite so good selling their own products. And I've heard that from a number of people here as well too.
It's a good call out to be aware of that. I think the reason that can happen, right, is because you're selling yourself, right? So it's a bit vulnerable, going and closing a deal. And I think the only tip that I can give there, apart from like learning to become more comfortable with closing those deals and asking those questions, is just being really bluntly honest. Like I had a client that I've been working now with for well over 6 months, actually. And when I was closing out the sale with them, I said to them, you guys have an established product market fit, right? Normally I work with people who kind of have figured out, right, here's my offering, people are willing to pay for it, they've got the foundations in place, and we help them sort of scale up from there. I said to them, you've got some signs that what you've got might work, but you haven't kind of got through that. Now, the time that it'll take to get through that, I can't give you a guarantee, right? Like I'm telling you that this is going to be an iterative experimental process, and I'll significantly increase the chances of you getting through it. But like my form, like it is a bit risky, right? Like I can't guarantee that it's going to happen, right? And so just putting any of that stuff, being a bit vulnerable and being real, like it might turn some people off, but it's going to turn the wrong people off, right? Because not every process, delivery, product is going to nail it exactly like everybody else, right? And if you just front up, be honest about what you do know, what is a risk on both sides, that can sometimes alleviate that nervousness founders have, because they're like, oh, I'm the one, delivering on this. And maybe you've got a bit of imposter syndrome going on or something like that. That can be a little tip, but sort of depends on the specific scenario. Obviously, sales coach very specifically to situations. So hopefully that's helpful.
Any other questions or comments sort of through based on your experience or your business? or any nuggets out of this that you found helpful?
Looks like they've got it all sorted, Nick. I'll just quickly talk to what you said there about sales and marketing and the crossover, right? I think when it comes to lead generation, you can do it with a sales lens or you can do it from a marketing lens. The marketing lens is getting out there and putting ads out there and posting on LinkedIn and, like going and drip feeding, building the need for what it is that you've got. A sales outbound approach is much more about getting super specific, right? You find the trigger event, you find the situation, you find the persona, you get all this like ideal picture of who's your ideal buyer, and then going out and having a conversation with them. Maybe that's a cold call. Maybe that's a LinkedIn message. Maybe that's asking for referrals from your network, right? That's a sales-led approach. And quite often, like when it comes to B2B, you can build a B2B business with no marketing. Like I've done it before. I did it with this business with a LinkedIn profile. I didn't even have a website up when I first started. And I went out there and I started outreaching using sales, and then you slowly infill marketing to kind of help you close at higher rates and accelerate your sales success over time. B2C is quite different because the dollar value is much smaller. You probably do often need to lead with marketing and figure that out because there just isn't the return on investment for you spending tons and tons of time talking to everybody to close sales. But that's kind of a different beast. It's just one of those things how I look at sales and marketing and talking about lead generation through a sales lens versus a marketing lens, and depending on the business depends on what you need, if that makes sense.
Excellent. No, that is helpful. Yeah. I've got a marketing lens most of the time, but I have come from a sales background, so I guess that's why it works reasonably well together.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right. Any other questions or comments here? All right, excellent. Well, look, it's as I say, you've got an offer for everyone, which is that Calendly link to for people to go and do that. What's the sales?
The scorecard. Do the scorecard. Come along to that call. I'll take you through the results, or someone in our team will take you through the results and give you some specific actions to go away with from a sales side of things.
If you haven't done it, and hopefully you haven't because you've been listening here attentively, not actually doing the score app while Peter was speaking, go and do it. It is worth doing. It doesn't take too long to do. I did it, or maybe sort of a week and a half or so ago, and it was really quite revealing as well. So I think I'll be having a conversation with you, Peter, just to to reveal some of the things that I can sort of close up and do. But certainly well worth doing, and I think Peter up on that opportunity. Now we do have a door prize for tonight as well too. So what's that entail, Peter?
Yeah, so on there I briefly touched on the personality profiling assessment tool that I like to use when hiring. It's really informative as far as from an energy management perspective as a founder, like what gives you energy, what takes away energy from you, and how you set up your working and potentially sales life around that. It's got two names out there in the market. One is Wealth Dynamics and the other is Talent Dynamics. Same thing. So if you've heard of it, that's what we're talking about. I do debriefs of profiles of those. So the door prize is a test token. They're normally $100 just to take the test, and we normally charge $250 ex-GST for a debrief along with the profile for that. So giving away one of those tonight.
Awesome, excellent. All right, well let's bring up our wheel. We've got a special way of drawing this, our wheel of names. So everybody's name is in that wheel there, and of course you need to be in the room to win this. So now's not the time to disappear. So stick around for a little while longer and we'll spin the wheel. All right, JM, let's spin that wheel. And a virtual drum roll, please. As it ticks around, and our lucky winner is Nan. Are you in the room, Nan? Just unmute yourself and let us know that you are here. Or has he disappeared? Just having a look through. Oh, I think Nan has disappeared. Oh, this would have been ideal for him. All right, let's spin the wheel again. I know Peter Beckenham had to go because he had a storm coming up in Thailand and they're closing laptops. Oh, he's not going to win it, is he? There we go. We were just talking about him. All right, let's drop him out there. So unfortunately, the storm has got the better of him. And hands on, Jacqueline Price. Are you here, Jacqueline? Oh, I can see your face. You've won before, Jacqueline. Jeepers, you
I
got
have.
touch.
You have to be here to win, don't you?
You do indeed. Oh, well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're organised to connect you, Jacqueline, with Peter tomorrow by email. So I'll do a joint introduction and then you can work, or possibly can she just click the Calendly link and
no, it's a different link.
a different one. Okay,
for
we'll
that one,
introduce you by email and then you can organise a time for that. So
Thank you.
well done. Excellent. Glad to see you won
Congrats,
again.
Jacqueline.
Absolutely. You have to be in it to win it.
Yeah,
Just turn up and you
absolutely.
win.
Absolutely. All right, well, that is our session for tonight. So let's everyone give Peter a huge round of applause for sharing that tonight. That was really interesting and sort of gave me some good insights on myself. If you enjoyed that tonight as well too, it will be up on the SmashGo YouTube channel tomorrow afternoon. So if you're not a subscriber to that, go and subscribe to the channel now. After this, we'll drop the links into chat. And if you remember to click that little bell after you've subscribed to it, get a notification as soon as that video is uploaded. And there we go. The links are now in chat. So now's an ideal time to download chat as well too. So if you click those three little dots at the bottom of chat, then you can download the chat and save the links and also those links that Peter has given us as well too. But apart from that, go and have an exceptional week. And thanks, Peter, once again for sharing with us. And we'll see you all back again next week.